So let's talk about Henrik Ibsen. You might know him as the father of modern drama, but he was so much more than that. He didn't just write plays, he basically turned the stage into a laboratory. He put the rigid social rules of his time under a microscope and held this, well, deeply uncomfortable mirror up to everyone watching. So let's dive in and see what they saw.
I mean, it sounds kind of crazy today, right? To think that the simple sound of a door slamming could cause a full-blown public scandal. But at the end of Ibsen's most famous play, A Doll's House, that's exactly what happened. That one sound was so revolutionary, it sent actual shockwaves across an entire continent. So, what on earth was so scandalous about it?
See, before Ibsen, a night at the theater was usually about watching grand historical stories, or maybe some old fables. But Ibsen, he pioneered realism. Suddenly, the characters on stage were complex, messy, driven by things they didn't even understand about themselves. And their living rooms, they looked exactly like the ones the audience had just left at home. This wasn't escapism anymore. This was a confrontation.
Okay, so to really get why all this was so explosive, we first have to understand the cage that Ibsen was critiquing. Let's break down the rules of what he so brilliantly called the doll's house.
For a typical middle-class woman in Norway back then, your life was pretty much laid out for you. Your world was the home, period. Legally, you had very few rights. Financially, you were completely dependent on your husband. Your whole purpose, your entire identity, wasn't about your own dreams or ambitions. It was defined by your duty to your family. And this brings us to the very heart of Ibsen's critique, the idea of the doll wife. In this kind of marriage, a woman wasn't an equal partner, not even close. She was more like a beautiful possession, a plaything to be admired and looked after, but never, ever respected as a whole independent person. And you can hear this so clearly in the way the characters talk. When Torvald Helmer calls his wife Nora his little lark or his squirrel, it might sound sweet on the surface, but it's actually pretty chilling. He's not seeing an equal partner. He sees a cute, simple little creature that needs to be taken care of. It's incredibly condescending. And you gotta understand, this wasn't just a private issue between a husband and a wife. This was about the entire social structure. Everything was built on keeping up appearances. Having a happy home was the most important thing, even if that happiness was a total sham, built on secrets and lies and crushed individuality. So, what happens when someone in this cage decides they've had enough? Well, that brings us to our first case study, Nora Helmer from A Doll's House. Her story is all about an explosive outward rebellion. Nora's journey is just incredible to watch unfold. She starts out as the perfect little doll wife, but she's hiding a huge secret. Years ago, she broke the law and forged a signature to get a loan to save her sick husband's life. This secret is like a ticking time bomb, and when it finally goes off, Torvald doesn't thank her. Nope, he flips out, furious that his reputation is at risk. And in that one moment, for Nora, the entire facade of her life just shatters. And it all leads to this absolutely devastating exchange. Torvald, in his bubble of complete male privilege, says that no one would ever sacrifice their owner for love. And Nora's response? It's not just a clever comeback. It's a lightning bolt that exposes the hypocrisy of the entire system. Millions of women have done just that. Just incredible. And all of this builds to that final, shocking moment, the slam heard round the world. Nora walks out, she leaves her husband, she leaves her children, everything. She says she has a sacred duty to herself, to figure out who she really is. You just have to try and imagine how radical, how absolutely unthinkable that was for an audience back then. But Nora's story is one of escape. So what happens when you can't escape? What if that door just won't open? For that, we turn to Hedda Gabler. And trust me, her story goes to a much, much darker place. So, meet Hedda. She is nothing like Nora. She's the powerful daughter of a general, she's smart, she's ambitious, she's full of fire. And she is bored out of her mind. She's trapped in this dull marriage and a life that has zero excitement, and all that ambition, all that intelligence has absolutely nowhere to go. And here you can really see the two different paths these women take in response to the same problem. Nora's journey is outward. It's about awakening and escaping. Hedda's journey, though, is inward. Since she can't break out of her cage, she tries to control and manipulate everything inside of it, and it just leads to this tragic, destructive spiral. Hedda's desperation is terrifying. She starts manipulating everyone around her, trying to shape their destinies just to feel some sense of power. She gives her old flame a pistol, hoping he'll commit a beautiful suicide, but reality is messy and ugly, not beautiful. And when she finds out how he really died, she's horrified. In the end, every single attempt she makes to gain power just backfires, leaving her completely trapped and facing blackmail. You know, what's really fascinating is that Ibsen himself said that the title, Hedda Gabler, using her maiden name, was intentional. He wanted her to be seen as her father's daughter. Her entire identity is wrapped up in the power and prestige of her past, a past she can't get back to, not this suffocating present she's stuck in. And ultimately, that's what destroys her. So it's pretty clear why these plays caused such a scandal. But they weren't just shocking, they were artistically revolutionary. And that's the real reason we're still talking about Henrik Ibsen all these years later. Ibsen didn't just stumble into this style. He made a very conscious choice to change everything. He started out writing these, epic historical dramas in verse. Then he basically went into a self-imposed exile, left Norway, and started writing these sharp, raw, realistic plays that were all about the uncomfortable truths of his own time. And here is Ibsen's true genius, his big innovation. In his plays, the most dramatic event, the crime, the affair, the big secret, it's already happened before the curtain even goes up. The real drama is watching that past bubble up to the surface and wreak havoc on the present. It's all psychological. Because his characters felt so real, so complicated and messy and human, audiences couldn't just dismiss them. When they watched Nora's awakening or Hedda's despair, they were forced to see the cracks in their own perfect homes, the human cost of all their society's rules. They were seeing themselves. So, Ibsen was an absolute master at exposing the invisible cages of the 19th century. And that kind of leaves us with a big question, doesn't it? A century and a half later, what are the doll's houses of our time? What are the unwritten rules and confining expectations that might still be shaping our lives, maybe without us even realizing it?